All right, everybody. This is episode 6 of the Lone Chemist podcast. My name is Johnny. I'm the Lone Chemist, and with me, my very good friend Abdallah. Abdallah, say hi to the people.
Hi to the people.
How we doing, my friend? I've been talking a little bit. What's new?
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Had to take some time to let the people miss me before I came back.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Gave you some time to bringing other people into the fold. Talk about some good topics. I haven't checked it out last time, but you did one on video game storytelling. That's pretty interesting topic. So I'll take the time to listen to it and stuff.
Yeah, thanks, man. It went well. It's Jason Corey from the grad program came over and we talked about stuff. It was interesting because, obviously video games are, not really a heavily utilized form of storytelling. So, but yeah, no, it's been good. Working on some video essays and glad to have the OG guest back, though, Abdallah. So happy to have you here. So a couple, actually just one quick announcement before we get started. So because I am technologically not very advanced, I took a long time to kind of get my bearings with how to live stream on YouTube effectively and have guests on for the podcast. So I'm pretty sure that I have everything ironed out for a live stream format of a podcast. So from this point forward, we're going to try and live stream all of our podcasts. And we're going to, obviously we're going to do our kind of chat thing. And then we're also going to have a chat box on the screen and everything like that, so you can submit questions during the podcast and all that kind of stuff. So,
it's going to be interactive. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I download the program. Basically, you can have your own video capture, then someone else's, then 2 audio inputs, and then you can link the server to your chat box from YouTube. So it's worked out well. I've done 2 live streams with this format, and when you conference in, it'll be basically the same thing. So I'm pretty excited for it.
Is it only
good.
2 people who can video conference, or can you have let's say a team of 4?
No, yeah, you can have more. So I have a second webcam here. So if you ever here in person, we could film ourselves with 2 different cameras, and then we could also, conference somebody else in. So we could have 2 local and then 1 remote, or 1 local and 4 remote, or whatever. And obviously the bandwidth kind of takes some hits, basically how many things you conference in at the same time. But yeah, it should be good. I'm pretty excited for it. So it'll be good to have some kind of interactive stuff with the viewers, and they can send some dank memes while we're talking about movies and stuff.
All right, cool. Yeah, looking forward to debuting that in the near future.
Yeah. All right, so my friend Abdallah, what are we talking about today?
Well, today what we can talk about is movie trailers. So it's a little bit, we're a couple of weeks late, but Comic-Con just wrapped a couple of weeks ago, and there were a lot of trailers that were released, all met with different sort of reactions. So the idea is, how do we assess these trailers? How successful are they? And do they really accomplish what they try to accomplish?
Yeah.
Do these trailers actually give up a good amount of the movie? Do these trailers make you excited to come check out the movie? What do they do? So we can talk about that in general.
Cool. All right. So yeah, it's a good place to start. Let's talk about just the function of a trailer, right? So obviously the function of a trailer is to generate marketing excitement for a movie. You're meant to, throw them before or after a movie and try and get people interested in coming to the movie. Give a small synopsis of the plot, or, in a effective trailer, not very much of the plot, but just in peak interest in basically different shots and different scenes in the movie. Another function is essentially, when you have movies that you don't really care if they're spoiled or not, you can basically truncate the plot of the movie into a small 3 to 4 minute segment. And so you can ascertain as an audience member whether or not you want to see the movie. So there are a couple different functions for it. I've always had kind of mixed feelings about trailers, to be completely honest with you. I think that they are a necessary evil because obviously you need to see how a movie looks before you see it. I prefer to go on blind mostly to movies, but I get the point of them. But I feel like it kind of takes out some of the revelatory magic of movies, because the most effective way to see a movie is when you have no standpoint of what you're supposed to feel about the movie. And when you have a trailer come out and then you have an impression of that trailer specifically, it kind of alters your perception of the movie that you're about to see. So you could be expecting one kind of movie and then get something completely different. And that can be a positive or negative thing. It can surprise you or it can really disappoint you. So I feel like trailers are kind of a mixed bag. I think that, yeah, they serve their purpose, and I get the point of them, but I'm not a huge fan of seeing a movie, before you even see the movie, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense, especially looking at it from a modern perspective, because I think the way that trailers have evolved over the last, let's say, couple of decades definitely are erring towards satisfying the widest audience possible. And what that satisfaction actually means has changed a lot over time. So I say, now that audiences have become a lot more sophisticated when it comes to dissecting trailers, not only the regular audience like you and I, but you also have a huge population of people who are basically experts. They will break down the trailer, they will analyze it to the depth, they will try to pick up all types of Easter eggs, make in-depth breakdowns, especially people who are experts over the source material. And
Yeah.
a lot of these movies that are coming out are either based on, let's say, some type of pre-existing source material, such as either a comic book, some type of movie or a cartoon, or even a book. In some of those cases, the trailers have to not only try to ensnare a wider audience than the people who are familiar with the source material by presenting interesting visual information and spurring them to go check out the movie, because like you said, it's a marketing ploy. The point of a trailer is to get you to see the movie.
Yeah.
Now, if you're somebody who's completely not familiar with whatever they're trying to portray, the trailer would be your the point at which you make your decision to go see the movie or not.
Exactly.
But then the experts also have to be satisfied, because their voices have become amplified over the last few years because of the internet, social media, etc. So if somebody is an expert on the subject material and they do not approve of your trailer, then you have a lot of issues that you need to overcome. And so some properties do that better than others.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So for example, you can look at, even within the superhero movie genre, you can look at Marvel versus DC versus Fox and how they treat their trailers. You can look at other people trying to make it into that space. So for example, or a movie that's kind of disruptive of the, let's call it, formula. So Deadpool or Logan coming out, those trailers have to be a lot different than, let's say, the Marvel trailers that we used to, because you're selling an R-rated movie.
Yeah,
But then how do you portray it?
You have the capability of expanding into red band culture as opposed to just having a G at the beginning of your screens. Yeah,
Exactly. So you got to take all of that into account. I feel like the people responsible for putting together trailers, their careers have become a lot more difficult over the last few years. But then at the same time, there should be an art to making a trailer where you keep people intrigued, you keep them interested, you keep them enthusiastic about your product, but you also keep them somewhat in the dark. And I think actually Star Wars is something that does that very well. You can rely exclusively upon the prevalence of your source material. Star Wars is very well known. You don't have to do much to convince an audience to go see it. So, introduce a couple of familiar things. Introduce like the familiar music. Some of the characters may be familiar. Some of the thematic elements may be familiar. Just tease them a little bit, and you've done your job.
yeah,
But
I'd agree
where you
with that.
have something that's completely novel, whether it is like an obscure Marvel character or something, you do have to do a lot more work to establish the aesthetics of your movie, to establish what the tone is going to be, all of that stuff. So it's become a lot more complicated recently, for sure.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And like you said, internet and viral culture has really kind of promulgated this environment where trailers are under heavy scrutiny. And in some ways, it's good. I mean, I think that if we're gonna, I'll go point by point, but basically, the superhero culture has really kind of foster this kind of environment where people dissect every single frame of a trailer. You know, for example, in the Infinity War trailer, I couldn't even tell you how many like hour-long dissections of a 3-minute clip that I saw, which is pretty crazy. I mean, like they take a lot of different tones and different aesthetics and different scenes, and they distill it down to almost like a scavenger hunt kind of clip where you can actually discover things about the movie that you didn't even think were going to be there, but they're so quick and instantaneous that you probably miss them if you weren't like really looking for it. So I think that part of trailers is interesting, and I think it's, you know, kind of fun. But I do think that there are some instances in which trailers can mislead an audience and can sell a movie that, you know, isn't really going to be what they think it's going to be cracked up to be. For example, the first time I ever noticed this was back in like 2000. When I
that long? Okay.
Yeah, seriously. So before I was really into movies, I mean, I watched trailers. Obviously, they're before movies. And sorry, I'm very popular.
Disc.
Sorry, I'll just put on silent, airplane mode. Anyway, back in like 2000 or so. I saw the trailer for the movie M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable, right? Did you ever see the movie, by the way?
I've seen the movie. I never see the trailer.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, first of all, great film, like genius film, amazing film, the best film, believe me. But so when you watch a trailer for that movie, they sell it completely differently than what's actually presented on screen in the movie. It's sold as this paranoia, like stalker-ish movie, almost like a Rear Window kind of thing, like a Hitchcock movie. It's like, are you ready for the truth? You're not ready for the truth, and it's all about Samuel L. Jackson. If you're watching this from a third-party perspective, you think that, holy shit, Samuel L. Jackson is stalking Bruce Willis, and like he has some weird information about him and stuff, and he's hoarding it, and then like it's going to lead to his death and all that stuff. And then watch the movie. The movie is an allegory for what if Superman existed on Earth and had no idea that he was a superhero. And those two completely different messages are kind of lost in the mix, and I feel like the marketing of that movie really suffered for it. And obviously, that was before I was even aware of the nuances of different, you know, movie marketing techniques. But in that way, I saw the trailer for the movie Unbreakable, and then I saw the actual film, and I got a completely different standpoint from when I actually saw the trailer. And I was really young, so it's a testament to those things really matter. Those things actually have an effect on the audience, and if people are receptive to them, then they can, you know, actually detract from the experience of the movie.
You know, I'm glad you brought up Unbreakable as your example, because I feel like what you just described is reasonably common. And typically speaking, the instances in which you see that the most are for either like art house films or horror movies. So at least art house horror movies. So for the most part, you know, horror movies there's quite a lot that come out in a given year, and they all have different trailers, and all those trailers look kind of the same. They've kind of followed the same formula.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, the horror genre, it's a genre that does well anyway. So the filmmakers are aware that they don't have to try very hard to be able to get their audiences to see the movie, because typically it's the same type of people who will always see those movies. They want just let my trailers be the same. Don't try to do anything cute with them. Just give me the trailer, I'll watch the movie. Just take my money already.
Yeah.
But now you have art house horror, or, you know, things that would normally struggle to find an audience, things that would not necessarily will fly over a lot of people's heads, and it would be a very sophisticated audience that would actually enjoy that movie. So, for example, I can't think of the title of this movie, but it's the movie with I think it's David O. Russell who made it with Jennifer
Lawrence.
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence, but I'm trying to see the title of the movie. Jennifer Lawrence, Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem is like her husband in the movie.
Oh no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mother, that's what it was. Mother.
No, that's Aronofsky, not David O. Russell.
Aronofsky, my bad, not David O. David O. Russell. She works with David O. Russell a lot. Aronofsky. So Mother is a type of movie where the trailer was completely misleading. The trailer and the actual movie are completely two different entities almost. And
Yeah.
part of the reason why it had to be done that way was, let's get this audience. Maybe we can sell them on the premise of these are the movie stars we have on our movie. They should sell the movie. Here is this big time director who's gonna sell the movie. But let's give them something to look forward to. Let's give them. Let's cut the trailer in such a way that the kind of movie they're expecting is not the kind of movie that they're actually going to see.
Exactly.
And actually, a lot of audiences were very disappointed by the time they got to the theater, which is why that movie, the reviews are decidedly mixed. You have
super
it's
polarizing.
super polarizing. It's either very well reviewed or very poorly reviewed. There's no middle ground. And some of the people who review it very poorly are the people who felt cheated by the way this movie was marketed. And that also happened recently. Again, another movie I didn't really see, but it's this art. I think you saw it.
Hereditary.
That's the one, Hereditary.
Yeah.
So
Very good, by the way.
Again.
Very, very good. I recommend it.
very good, but the trailer and the movie are different entities. It's not what it probably wasn't what you were expecting. The trailer sold it as a little bit more maybe action heavy or, more jump scares than what the movie actually is, which is like a slow burn sort of psychological thriller, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with that in some cases, but I think that the aesthetic of the film is largely consistent with those two things. And even though there is a little bit of a hint of more abrasive scare techniques in the trailer than there are in the actual film, I would argue that makes the actual film even more scary, because even though you're not jumping out of your seat, you're invested in kind of this creepy aesthetic that's built throughout the entire runtime. So, but I do agree with your point that those things are definitely they create kind of a disparity between what the audience thinks they're going to see and what they actually end up seeing. I agree with that.
No, well, so that's a good point that you brought up. That's your reaction to it. That's not the universal reaction.
Sure.
That
Yeah, it's subjective.
Anybody
Right.
who show up to that theater will have. So that's kind of the issue. I just want butts in the seat, and the movie that I have is what it is. If I presented it as it was, maybe I wouldn't have so many butts in the seat. So you take that initial box office gain, but then maybe you suffer in the long run. And ultimately, these movies, at least nowadays, the initial box office, that first weekend, is the one that really matters. Then you just coast on word of mouth. If you have enough butts in the seat, even if your word of mouth is mixed, then you still have more people who would show up in subsequent viewings than you'd normally have in the first place.
Yeah.
Whereas if you presented the trailer, the movie as it's supposed to be, and you get fewer butts in the seat, then your word of mouth is not going to help you go to profitability if your movie doesn't start on a good footing. So you play those financial games a lot, and I think directors and producers are smart enough to know what kind of product they're gonna put out, especially you have producers who somebody like Aronofsky. That movie is not really a movie that would normally be made by big studios, but then you say Aronofsky is a good director. Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem could probably sell a movie. Let's just take that risk, give them the money, give them this particular release window, and hope for the best. And then as the movie comes closer, maybe you start panicking a little bit and you say, well, let me just try to save it. I can't just sell it to Netflix at this point. Let me just try to save it. So you would put together a trailer that's kind of misleading. I don't know. You just cut your losses where you can.
Yeah, it's kind of a subtle thing. It's almost like gambling in a way, where you think you know what kind of product you're peddling, but you also want to ascertain how the audience is going to actually react to it, and then those two things aren't usually or not always synonymous. So I agree with that it's a subtle thing that it kind of takes away from some of the magic of just realizing a plot for the first time and seeing it unfold before your eyes, and just getting a reaction to a movie cold, just seeing a movie and that's how you feel about it. And so that leads me into my next critique of trailers, where they spoil the movie, and it happens so often that it's like it's shitty, man. Like, I'll give you an extreme example. Did you ever see Southpaw with Jake Gyllenhaal?
The movie, no, but I'm familiar with it.
Okay. Basically, what happened? Okay, and you know.
Well, Southpaw is inspired from a true story, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if it is. I think it might be original, but we can check that out later. But anyway, so even if it's inspired by a true story, the way in which the film plays out is going to obviously be distinct from the way reality plays out most of the time. So, and spoilers to anybody listening, but the grace period's over. The movie's been out for a year. So, anyway, it's a movie about a boxer. The boxer's wife gets killed, and then he basically fights, to bring himself back up to his former glory. They show the death scene of the wife. They show the final fight redemptive scene in the trailer, and it ruins the entire movie. If you just build it as Jake Gyllenhaal kicking ass in a boxing film, making it dramatic and profound, that would be fine. But you go to the movie expecting exactly what the plot of the entire film is going to be. You know the arc that he's supposed to go through. Another example of that, Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming, the trailer spoiled the entire movie because you see him get a suit. You see the flashback to Civil War in like the first couple like shots of the trailer. Then you see him fight. Then you see him fuck up. And then you see Iron Man take away his suit, saying, if you know nothing about the suit, you shouldn't have it. As an audience member, you're like, okay, he's going to prove that he's Spider-Man by himself. Like, the man doesn't make the suit, or the suit doesn't make the man makes the suit. And then by the end of the movie, obviously everything gets resolved, gets the suit back and everything like that. Because, you see Spider-Man and Iron Man like swinging through the city together in the last shot of the trailer. And it's like those kind of things, those are really frustrating as a filmmaker because I'm not a filmmaker. I'm an appreciation like nut. I love film. I'm a huge film nerd. So it's like when you have those two dichotomies, like you're trying to peddle a marketed product to people, but you're also trying to please all the super fans. But then those things don't always mix because you end up spoiling the entire movie. And I don't want to go in knowing the entire plot of the movie. Part of the fun is you go into it and you're surprised and you're genuinely taken back by some of the twists and turns the plot has. And when you get rid of some of those surprises by trying to get asses in the seats, it's kind of shitty for someone who loves film.
Well, now that we are on topic of that movie, let me ask you a question. What would you say is the most surprising part of that movie?
Okay.
Because I would argue
fair.
that the most surprising part of the movie is not in the trailer. And so that is something that they wisely held off for the actual movie
and
itself.
I was going to get to that. Like they were able to have a surprise in the movie, but you still understand the entire plot arc of Spider-Man as a character. He's doing well, he fucks up, gets a suit taken away, he redeems himself, and then he's back to being Spider-Man at the end of the movie. Where, I agree, and okay, spoilers here again, Adrian Toomes is the father of the love interest of Peter Parker, which, yes, that's very surprising. Yeah, it's very, very surprising. However, I still went into it knowing the entire plot and calling the entire thing. Like, I knew kind of beat for beat what was going to happen in the general plot and the arc of Spider-Man's character. Another example of that, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, which, I mean, of course, we've kind of gone, ad nauseum for how much we detested parts of the movie. But the first trailer, at least, was somewhat vague, and it kind of alluded to this big fight between Batman and Superman. And so the second trailer, they spoiled Doomsday, like, coming to life. Yeah. And then you see the close-up of Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman, like, fighting the thing, like the last shot. You understand that, okay, yeah, they're going to have their differences, but then they're going to put them aside and fight this monster, and that's going to be the end of the movie. And that gives away such a vital experience when you go to a movie. You want to be surprised by things. You want to not... You basically... You want to trust the filmmaker, and you basically want to put your attention in their hands and see what they do with it. That, at least, like, to me, that's a really rewarding part of going to a movie. But unfortunately, they, at least to a certain extent, they don't really care about spoiling their entire film unless it's a massive budget overhaul like Infinity War, where they were very, very careful about, like, CGIing Thor's eye and getting rid of the Infinity Stones and the Gauntlet. Those kind of things I respect because they benevolently mislead the audience into thinking one thing's going to happen, and then it's a reversal of when you actually see the movie. So that I really respect. But when you're doing these kind of movie spoilers in the respective trailers, it's kind of crappy to like see a trailer and then have the entire plot basically just given to you on a silver platter.
I do agree with Batman versus Superman. I think the Wonder Woman reveal, well, not so much Doomsday, but the Wonder Woman reveal itself when she steps in to save Batman from near death, from sure death. That one was the best part of the movie, and it was very unfortunate that they put it in the trailer because I think that was a big mistake on their part. Now, so that example, along with Spider-Man: Homecoming and Infinity War, as you brought up, kind of leads me into my next point, which is the reason why I think movie trailers are different now than they were, let's say back in the 70s or 80s, is because the audience participation is a lot more enhanced nowadays. And not only once the movie is about to be released, but during the actual production of the movie itself. So nowadays, it's not very rare to see a superhero movie being made. You have the script, it's being written for, let's say, about a year, as well, along with other elements of pre-production. The movie is ready to be made, it's shooting, you've wrap up your principal photography, then perhaps you would bring some of that footage into like Comic-Con or some other big festival where you know that the news will spread out through the internet about the quality of the movie, how people should be hyped for it. And then part of doing the filmmaking, you have specialized audiences that see like an early cut of the movie. You take their criticism into account. You might have to order some reshoots. You reshoot the movie, etc., etc. So those kind of movies, they really integrate the audience feedback during the entire filmmaking process. Whereas in a movie like Jaws, I was watching a couple of trailers from way back in the day earlier, like trailers from like the 70s and 80s. You have a lot of the difference is you have a lot of like narration by a narrator.
Exactly, yeah. Like
the narrator will narrate elements of the plot, and typically you'll have like the movie soundtrack being the background for the trailer. Like Jaws, you had the shark music. E.T., you had the main theme. Even the Terminator trailer, you had that sort of the aesthetic.
A time traveler from the future is now back to take revenge. Like
it's
actually, and in that one, actually, the narration is a line from the movie that Reese says. It's like, this machine cannot be bargained with. It cannot be reasoned. It does not feel pity. It does not feel pain. So all of these things, that's how you made the trailers back in the day. You have your movie, you rely upon either a big time actor such as, for Jaws, like Roy Schneider, Richard Dreyfuss, and for Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was probably the biggest movie star of that time. You rely on them to sell the movie, and the filmmakers. You say Steven Spielberg presents or James Cameron presents the Terminator. Nowadays the actual content is the driving force, and
exactly.
Again, it's a content that the audience is brought in from an early perspective, and so because of that, I feel like as time goes on, the trailers that you get change, and you saw it very, very well with Batman versus Superman. I think if you look at typically nowadays you have like 3 trailers. You have a teaser trailer, which may be like a minute long or something, and then you have like 2 main trailers. For Batman versus Superman, if you look at the evolution of the trailers, you'll see, I think, what maybe this is fair or not, they get a little bit more desperate every single time to try to broaden their audience. And I think that the last trailer, you introduced Doomsday, you did not have to do that, but you probably panicked and say, oh man, we don't have a very good movie. Let's throw our backup cars in there. And the Wonder Woman scene, you spoil the Wonder Woman entrance because presumably you want to bring in like a female audience or something. And all of those choices are very unfortunate because they spoil some of the best parts of the movie. You spoil your entire climax. That's the one thing you do not want to spoil, the climax of the movie. And you spoil your biggest revelation. And so there are no surprises in the movie when you watch it. The only surprise is the whole Martha thing, which was a complete misstep. So Spider-Man: Homecoming doesn't do that. You know, you kind of have the idea for where the plot goes, but then when you watch the movie, and you find out that you know, that surprise that Toomes is the girl's father, then there is an element of tension that you build on. You say, well, are they supposed to destroy each other now? What's gonna happen? Like, now there is a personal connection between them. You can't just have Spider-Man destroy him. It has to be resolved in a different way. So you have a different element of tension there. Batman versus Superman, you don't really have that. Maybe the only thing that there is tension is, oh, Superman might be dead because he just took on a full-blown nuclear missile, and of course he doesn't die. So
Yeah.
so you know, it's a tricky game to play, and because of that audience participation, it's very easy to err into how you portray the movie. And sometimes you want to be reactionary. So DC is known for being reactionary. Like, your movie comes out, it's not very good, but then your competitors are doing very well. So then you want to be reactionary and either portray your movie the same way they did, or portray the trailer of your movie the same way they did. And they did that with Suicide Squad. Like, the whole, let's have every single character that we introduced through music. That's what Guardians of the Galaxy did, because
Yeah, have a bunch
Guardians
of
of the Galaxy,
anti-heroes
all
you
of
never
those
heard of
people
before,
were-
kicking ass to 80s music. That's basically exactly the same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy.
exactly the same thing, because the Guardians, nobody knew who they were. There wasn't, I mean, yes, it's a comic book property, but a general audience did not know who these people are. So the trailer had to introduce them. And then you have this awesome music in the background that creates the viewers. Maybe even they didn't even know the music, but those two unknowns went very well together.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad, you have unknown characters, but you do not have unknown actors. So
Exactly.
like Will Smith is very famous. Margot Robbie was
Margot
pretty
Robbie,
famous. You know, so the people in that movie were famous, but then the characters were not. So you had to rely upon a gimmick that was already done by somebody else to sell your movie, which ultimately did not work out. So it's one of those things. I think your studio just has to be confident in what they're doing, because the process of filmmaking is the same for all of them, but the way that audiences react to them or stuff is different. And so you have to know that balance and how to exploit it. And at that time, DC didn't figure it out, but perhaps they have figured it out by now.
Yeah, and actually to keep on the DC topic, I mean, this is kind of a little bit of a segue, but I think that probably the best trailer for any movie I've ever seen is Man of Steel. Man of Steel trailer 3. I've maybe watched that like 100 times. Like, it's a perfect trailer. It's absolutely flawless. And then the movie is a completely different tone. It's completely different than what is actually promulgated in the story, which is like, it's kind of the reverse of what we were talking about before, where, you know, you can be misled in the opposite direction, which is, it kind of speaks to the fact that studios really, they, I don't know, sometimes they don't really know what they're doing with the trailers, which is, very unfortunate, because it can make a bad movie even worse, or it can mislead you to think that you're going to be seeing a masterpiece and turn out to be, you know, crock of shit. So it kind of cuts both ways. But I mean, I guess all of this is kind of surmising to, you know, and we're obviously going to get into this later, but do you think that that trailers are ruining movies? Like, would you say that?
I say it depends. It depends on the type of movie. And so, for example, let's say a movie is adapted from a book, and typically nowadays you have a much shorter turnaround between when a popular book is released to when the movie comes out. So you have these audience members who have very particular, powerful images in their minds from reading the book. It's important to show them how your adaptation lines up with their vision of these characters. So perhaps you include key scenes which have key settings. You would include key interactions between characters or key moments within the story, and these are important because you've read the book. This is the things you're looking for. You want to be able to tease that a little bit. But you know, let's say somebody who hadn't read the book will watch the same trailer and not feel that they've been spoiled. And I think that's the balance that you need to strike. But what you're observing more and more these days is that there is some amount of disconnect between the marketing firm that cuts the trailer and the filmmaker himself or herself. Or so you can either have the disconnect being there where people are, I mean, I've heard directors say it on Twitter where the trailer included a scene that they did not want in there, like the directors did not want them in there, but the trailer people had to do it. And you have those people, but then you also have situations like Infinity War where the directors themselves are the ones who actually cut the trailers, and because of that, because of the fact that there are certain moments that they don't want spoiled, like you said, they'll probably film a scene particularly for the trailer and not actually include it into the movie itself, either to misdirect the audience or to even get them more excited about the movie itself.
Yeah,
So, like Infinity War,
the Thanos line, for example, where it's like, fun isn't something one considers when balancing the universe, but this puts a smile on my face. Like when he has like the gauntlet.
that's never in the movie.
Never in the movie.
Or the final scene when everybody is running in Wakanda and the Hulk is there. That's not in the movie either.
Exactly.
Because it's very important that the Hulk does not transform while he's in Wakanda. That's a very important moment in the film itself. Yeah. But you don't want that in the trailer. So you're going to fake it out and get people excited. Oh my God, all these people getting together to fight Thanos' army. That should be awesome.
Yeah.
So it's a little things. You don't wanna do something too big. I think that's gonna just betray your audience. You don't want to do that. I mean, you can fake them out a little bit, but you don't want to betray their trust like that. But now, if a trailer of a movie is if a movie itself is adapted from a source material where people already know what happens, I feel like it's okay to show some of the key moments.
Oh, for sure.
Because you don't have to worry about ruining it. But then, if you're adapting a story, because typically, at least comic book properties, they're not faithful to adaptations. They'll use the source material as inspiration, but they might have their own logical rules within the stories that they want to tell on screen. Therefore, you can have those fake out moments will actually be valid because that's something you can afford to do. I don't know. I feel like yes, you can spoil the movie, or you can also confuse the hell out of people.
Exactly, and a good example of that is you were talking about it earlier. The Last Jedi. I mean, obviously, we have subjective opinions about the movie, but the way they cut the trailer was very misleading about what actually transpires in the movie, and everyone on like Reddit and all that shit was like, this movie is going to be spoiled, like, the whole thing is spoiled for us, and really not exactly. Like there are some plot points that are given away, but the actual arc of the characters in the story is not really is not really up for being ascertained by the audience in the trailer. So I think it's good that a lot of trailers do that, and they purposely mislead instead of deceiving the audience. I guess misleading and deceiving are the two kind of devices they use to surprise audiences. And I think that I wouldn't like to bring it back to my original point. I don't think that trailers are ruining movies, but I feel like it's taking away a certain experience that's only developed when you actually go see the movie blind with really no standpoints at all. And I think that I try and refrain from trailers as much as I can, unless it's like a massive movie and I have to see it because I'm just a nerd. But I try to limit my exposure to the movie before I actually see it, because I think the most magical movie experience, to be kind of bohemian with my terms, I think that happens when you really know as little about the movie as possible. But that's just my opinion. I mean, obviously people can prefer to be more informed than I do with movies, but that's kind of subjective.
Well, obviously you cannot see a movie for the first time twice, right? So say, whatever your latest experience in walking towards a movie without having seen the trailer, and then maybe seeing the trailer after the fact, like how do you have an example of that in your life recently where you did that, where you went to see a movie, you hadn't seen any real material before it, and then you watched the material after the fact?
Yes. Back in 2011, I saw nothing about the movie. I saw the movie Source Code with Jake Gyllenhaal. You ever see that one? Yeah, and I'm very happy that I didn't see anything about the trailer. about the movie. Rather, I had no idea what the plot was. I had no idea what was going to transpire. I had no idea who was in the movie. I just saw the movie on a whim, and I'm really glad I did, because it was, a really kind of mind-bending sci-fi movie, and actually one of my favorite movies. I think it's a really emotionally gripping story, but it's also very mind-bending and very kind of trippy. So I would say that that's probably one of the more recent examples that I've done. Yeah.
Sure, but now let me tell you this. Let me ask you this. If it wasn't Jake Gyllenhaal in that movie, would you have seen it? Like, what was the selling point for it? Was it the fact that it was a potentially sci-fi movie? Was it the director? Was it the actors?
Well, it was Duncan Jones, I believe, the guy who did Moon and stuff like that. Honestly, I remember going to the movies, and I remember the movie that I wanted to see was sold out, and so I just looked at the posters, and that's the one that looked most interesting. So I'm like, okay, I'll see source code. So it wasn't like I was like, you know what, Jake Gyllenhaal, I don't like him too much. I'm gonna go see, I don't know, Block Party or Grown Ups or some shit.
Yeah.
But yes, I would agree that there are some draws that are just going to be there regardless. You can't really do anything about them. Like the director. If James Cameron's making a movie, people are going to see it. If Leonardo DiCaprio is starring in a movie, people are going to see it. So I would agree with you there that there are some draws that you can't really take out of it, just in the fact that, we have access to information. We know who's going to star in movies, who's going to direct it. But I'm talking specifically about plot points and about arc of the story. I feel like knowing as little as possible about those fronts, I feel like sets you up for a more, I guess, comprehensive movie watching and analyzing experience. That makes any sense.
Yeah, and I feel, because of that, you were probably primed to enjoy a movie like that already, because you probably like the type of genre.
Yeah.
You were familiar with the director. You knew his previous work, even though it's not like a household name or anything. But you were familiar with, as a member of a niche audience, you knew who you were dealing with. You kind of knew what to expect a little bit.
Somewhat, yeah. Sure, yeah.
But that's not a luxury that a lot of properties or film studios have. Well, let's say, so something like A24. A24 is a fairly new movie studio. A24 has had a very, very good track record in terms of the movies that they produce, or Blumhouse or something like that, where you say, oh, that's the new Blumhouse movie, that's a new A24 movie, it might be worth watching. In a case like that, again, it's a member of a niche audience who would presumably be open to watching a movie without knowing much about it in the first place. That's not going to be a lot of people, so you cannot eliminate the necessity of trailers. That's not something that can ever happen. But then you can tame them a little bit. You can sort of de-emphasize them to the extent that make sure that the trailer, all it does is inform a potential audience member that it is something they can see. So for example, if it's a movie that, let's say I'm a parent, as a parent, the types of movies that I would be able to see now, as a single person in my mid to late 20s now, versus as a parent of a 6-7 years old, 10 years from now or something, the types of movies I'm going to see are going to be very different. And so I'll be relying on trailers to be able to tell me, hey, this is actually a movie I can take my kid to see.
Sure, absolutely.
So if we can strip down the trailer to its bare bones, all it has to do is intrigue the potential viewer and also let them know that this is an appropriate movie for them to see. That would be the minimal thing that the trailer could do. Don't give up the plot or anything like that, and perhaps you will be able to be as successful as you would otherwise be. But that's a big gamble. I think, obviously as scientists, we would like to see somebody do the experiment, analyze those results, and see whether that hypothesis holds or not. But, who's going to take that risk? I think the one movie that did that was Annihilation, which came out this year.
Yep, absolutely.
Didn't really have much of a marketing scheme. I don't even know if he had a trailer.
Yeah, there's a trailer for it, but
there was a trailer for it, but
it was
came
very,
out
very vague. Yeah.
It was a vague trailer, and I think it came out close to the movie opening. It wasn't like something that came out like a year beforehand.
Yeah.
And so nowadays trailers, they don't even tell you just about the movie itself. They tell you what kind of state the movie is in.
Yeah.
So I told you about the Suicide Squad or Batman versus Superman, and how that sort of conveyed increased desperation from the studio itself.
Yeah.
But then you have audience members like to see content. If they don't see content in the particular window, then there is a problem. So, for example, Fox were supposed to have two movies to come out this year. It was the New Mutants and the fourth X-Men, the next X-Men movie.
Yep.
The New Mutants had the trailer. It was decently well received. But then I don't know for what reason they decided that they wanted to completely change the movie, adding a completely new character, changing the aesthetic of it. Probably it was because either Logan or Deadpool came out and they were like, oh well, this R-rated thing is gonna work out, so let's make our movie darker or something.
Yeah.
But basically, they have to redo the entire movie, and that movie is gonna be released sometime next year. The other X-Men movie, I just don't think the movie was good enough to begin with. They never released the trailer, and they decided to delay it, reshoot some of it. And the fact that the movie was supposed to be released in November or December, but there was no, it's August now, and there was no footage. It was very concerning that the movie wasn't going to be good, it wasn't going to be finished, and ultimately they had to push it back. I feel like Aquaman kind of took his time before they released any footage, and it was one of those things where it's the next movie after Justice League. It's supposed to be the redeeming movie for DC. Why did they wait so long before they released the trailer? Like, as a potential person to watch that movie, that kind of made me a little apprehensive. And so it's not one of those things like Star Wars or Marvel where you actually want to be as secretive as possible. I don't think DC is there just yet. So
Absolutely
it
not.
was kind of concerning that, hey, where is the footage? What's going on? Is the movie not done? Is the movie not good? What's happening? You can ask yourself those questions.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of felt the same way about when I saw Aquaman and Shazam, those trailers. I felt like, for one, they were kind of copying beat for beat a lot of things that Marvel has done in the way they execute trailers. Like, Shazam was kind of a ripoff of Guardians of the Galaxy, to be completely honest. Like, it was, playing modern music. I mean, obviously, they don't have, like, Kendrick Lamar in Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's a silly movie. They have, like, quippy jokes, and they... I guess it's more similar to Deadpool in the way that it was executed, but still, like, they don't have an aesthetic that they have capitalized on yet that's completely original. So when I saw those movies that were kind of derivative, or the trailers that were kind of derivative, I was already apprehensive because I think the DC is kind of the well's kind of run dry, so to speak. But yeah, I would agree that it made me kind of apprehensive. I still want to see it because I'm a completionist and I'm interested, but the trailer didn't really garner that much goodwill from me. But what I wanted to get to was there are some filmmakers and some companies that are doing great things with trailers that actually pique audience inquisition, but they also don't give enough away for anybody to know what's going on before they get in the movie. Case in point, Christopher Nolan is genius at crafting his trailers. He if you look at The Prestige, for example, you watch that movie and you think it's just a magic trick and it's like a dueling magician kind of movie. And when you see the movie, it is so much more than that, but you have no idea what's going on from when you see the trailer. Same with Interstellar. Interstellar is a generally straightforward sci-fi movie that, a guy goes into space and tries to save humanity, but the plot is so much more than that. That the entirety of the entire scope of the trailer is wrapped up within the first act and maybe a little bit in the second half. And best example of that is Inception. Inception, you have zero idea what's going on. You see things bending time and space. You see a top that's floating upside down. You see people running on walls and stuff. And so, obviously, as a person who's never seen a movie like that, you think, wow, I want to see that because the visuals look stunning, and then it has some great actors in it, of course. But the way they cut the trailers together, it informs the audience, and it sets a general tone for what you're actually going to see, but you really don't know much about the movie at all. And that kind of relies on you to go see the movie and get your ass in the seat. And so I feel like Christopher Nolan is one of the best filmmakers that's making trailers that are informative, but they don't spoil anything. Another example of that is J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams with the whole Cloverfield paradox, and obviously the movie's not that great, but the original Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield Lane, and that movie, Cloverfield Paradox on Netflix, had genius marketing campaigns. Cloverfield 1, when I saw the trailer for that, it was a media firestorm. Everybody was talking about that trailer, and it made... No one knew anything about what was going on. They saw the head of the Statue of Liberty, and like
that was a big
they,
deal.
They didn't even know the name of the movie. It literally said like hashtag best night ever at the end of the movie, at the end of the trailer. No one knew what the hell was going to go on. Same thing on 10 Cloverfield Lane. They released that trailer 2 days before the movie came out. Like they relied on mystery and prestige instead of teasing the plot and informing the audience. And they kind of caught everyone by surprise. Same thing with Cloverfield Paradox. Right after the Super Bowl was when they aired the trailer for the first time, and then they released the movie. So
same day, yeah.
Exactly. And so say what you will about the movie subjectively. I happen to like the first Cloverfield. 10 Cloverfield Lane was okay, and then the Cloverfield Paradox was kind of shitty. But you can't deny that the marketing and the trailer construction for those movies is pretty genius, because it instantly locks you in as soon as you see something like that, but you have no idea what's about to go on. So it's a perfect testament for making the audience feel a certain way and have them expect a certain tone, but really have no idea what the plot is going to be, which I think is a perfect kind of dichotomy between informing and deceiving in the with the audience, if that makes any sense.
Along with those, I think the another movie that did a very good gimmick was Paranormal Activity, which never really had proper trailers, but basically the marketing was, we showed it at this theater, this is the response of the audience, they were scared out of their minds. Go online and demand for this movie to be shown in your local
Genius
theater
marketing.
or whatever.
Genius.
It was very well done. So the movie cost like $15,000 to make. I'm sure that marketing campaign did not cost any money at all, but because of it, that movie grossed a lot of movie. I think it made like almost 100,000 times its budget or something. It was something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
But those it takes a lot of genius to be able to do something like that. You know?
Same thing with the Blair Witch Project, for example. They crafted it as like a true story, like it was an actual found footage movie, and in the trailer they had like rest in peace to all these people because they're unknown actors, and the trailer actually looks like they just found the footage somewhere and they've actually started playing it. So that introduced a lot of prestige into that movie as well, where in the trailer you believe that it's real. And so those really genius marketing campaigns come along, once every couple years, but when they hit really hard.
Yeah, so I don't know. So, the point of these specific examples is there is still a way to be able to market a movie without giving away anything, and you just have to be, I guess, savvy enough to find out how to do it and know your audience, know your potential audience, and see how you can grow it. But you don't have to grow it yourself. You can rely upon other people to grow it for you. So that's kind of what Cloverfield and Paranormal Activity did. Let it tease your audience, make them tease each other as well. So that would probably be the future of trailers if you have one. So let's say there's a movie coming out about a book that was released, let's say came out this week, and that movie is coming out 2 years from now. If a book is released this week, there's going to be quite a few people to read it now. How does a potential filmmaker leverage the reader's enthusiasm for the movie itself? You can play those games. So or you can have people being, you can have audience members bought in. I think It movie does that very well. So
Absolutely.
Before we have any news about the casting for the adult parts, you had all these different websites giving out polls saying, hey, who should be in this movie?
The dream casting stuff,
The dream cast, all these things, and this was extra marketing for a movie that the studio itself did not have to do. But then they actually had to do the work and get these actors. Jessica Chastain came up quite a lot. You had to have her in there, and you did.
Yeah.
And you surround her with all these other A-listers, like a Bill Hader or James McAvoy. That movie is going to be great. So they may just have to show like a teaser trailer, and that should be enough.
Yeah.
I think that should be enough. Obviously, they're gonna show maybe 3 trailers, but they don't have to. But they will. And actually, I remember when The Dark Knight Rises was coming out back in 2012. A lot of people were asking, why the hell are they spending so much money marketing this thing? They don't need to.
Yeah.
Because I remember like the couple of weeks before it came out, there were trailers everywhere. It was ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, The Dark Knight made so much money. Why the hell do you need to market this thing? It's because they had to. That's kind of how it works. But you know, show restraint when you can. And The Dark Knight Rises was definitely a movie that could show restraint, and he didn't.
Yeah, for sure. And like, you know, to stay on the subject of that movie, they did some creative things. Like they had the national anthem trailer, which I thought was pretty clever. Like they had like the sports stadium kind of destruction thing. That was clever. But I agree that the market was saturated with those trailers. It was, you know, that The Dark Knight is regarded as one of the best movies, not only in comic book lore, but of all time. Like obviously people were going to see it. Like, and that was going to be the conclusion to arguably one of the most critically and audience successful movies, franchises of all time. So people were definitely going to see it. It wasn't like, you know, if you didn't have 3 trailers, an international trailer, and then a teaser trailer, and then like a GameSpot trailer, then people were going to see it. So I agree with you there that it was kind of needless. But nevertheless, trailers are necessary, and I recognize that. But I just wish they weren't so ingrained in culture, because while they're fun to peruse and get all the Easter eggs out and all that kind of stuff, it like I'll say it again, I sound like a 70-year-old. It's just fun going to a movie without any idea what you're about to see, and then just seeing how you feel about it. And obviously you don't want to waste your time, because trailers will more or less inform you about the sentiment and the tone of the movie. But I feel like there's a lot of value in just experiencing a movie as opposed to just elaborating on the trailer you just saw.
And I think, again, somebody needs to take that risk. Presumably somebody who knows they don't have much to lose. If you don't have much to lose financially or in terms of your particular prestige, take the risk. Let's say run an old school trailer for like a Terminator type trailer for the next Terminator movie, and then see what happens. I'd be curious to see it.
Yeah.
But then again, I feel like the only few people who could get away with it, somebody like Tarantino could probably
for sure.
do that.
Like he's a nostalgic.
Tarantino, you know, his
nut.
next movie, the casting is crazy for that one. You have Leo DiCaprio, you have Brad
Tom Hardy. Yeah.
Tom Hardy, you know, you have all these people, but like, you probably don't need to convince a diverse audience to go see it. Just take that risk, you know, do a gimmicky trailer and see what happens. I'd be curious, because Tarantino movies, they don't really make, you know, blockbuster type money anyway, but they also do very well. Just
critically so,
financially.
yeah.
I don't think he needs a trailer to be able to get his numbers. So run that experiment. But I don't know if anybody else can get away with it. I feel like maybe Marvel Infinity War Part 2, they technically could go straight to theater without releasing any footage, and it wouldn't make, you know, $250 million in the first weekend the way this one did, if that's how they do it. But it will still make a whole lot of money anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone, even if you're not a fan of Infinity War as a movie, anybody who saw it is going to see the sequel. Like, that's just a given. Like, anybody who paid for Infinity War the first time is going to see the sequel. It's unless, like, you're completely fine with the way it ended, and you're like, it kind of sucked, whatever. But most people who saw it, they need that conclusion, like, what the hell is going to happen? And I don't think a trailer is really going to convince anybody to go when we were already. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Exactly. So it can be done, but only a few people can do it. But I'm willing to see the person who takes that risk.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Nolan is almost there. Obviously, he's a mainstream filmmaker, but a lot of his trailers don't really even inform the audience. They just they feel you out and they show you the tone. So I feel like he is probably the closest one, him and Tarantino, that could actually do it and really have no financial losses or anything like that. But I agree that it's a subtle thing that I think that filmmakers really should experiment with. It'll show people that you can experience a movie for the first time and not really have any kind of palate for anything that's come before it. So,
Yeah. Willing
Yeah.
to see it. Let's do it.
yeah. Anything else you want to add? Oh, actually, on Infinity War, this is like a complete segue, but how badass would it have been if Thanos, like, snapped his fingers, everything cut to black. No credits, just cut to black. Lights come on. Like, that's the end of part 1. Because it's very similar to the comics.
Man.
Like, so the first issue of Infinity War ends with, like, him, like, courting death, and, like, basically you see his hand, and, like, it zooms in on the snap, and then boom. But, like, how sick... I know it wouldn't have worked. You had to, like, have the emotional crux of everyone fading away. But how sick would it have been for the audience reaction to be like, cut to black, no credits, everything in the universe is done, and then, like, all the lights come on. And everyone's like...
I think that would have been crazy. I do like the immediate thing that happened after he did that.
The Soul World thing, yeah.
Yeah, because no. I mean, like 2 seconds later, where Tori is like, "What did you do? What did you do?" And then Thanos didn't even know what he did. Like, he was confused as hell too.
Yeah.
And then he disappeared. And then that's when you saw people starting to disintegrate. I feel like if you ended it there, where Thanos was like looking all confused and then disappearing, and you cut to black there,
Yeah.
that would have been crazy. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have loved to see it. I would have been probably pissed at the moment,
Oh,
but then I
hell
would
yeah,
realize
I would've
how
been
much
pissed.
I would have realized how much of a genius move that is. That's a power move right there.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's middle fingers up in the air, like, go fuck yourself. I don't care what you think of my movie. This is my movie.
Yeah, only Marvel could do something. They could do that. I think Marvel could have
Oh, for
gotten
sure.
away with it, but only they could do that. That's a power move right there. So
Yeah. Like if
Missed opportunity.
DC
Oh, well.
try to do that, if DC try to do that, then even DC fanboys would be like, okay, I'm done with this fucking studio. Flip the table and get the fuck out of there.
yeah, I can see that too. But
Yeah.
yeah, that would have been nuts.
Yeah. And then honestly, and to bring it back to what we were talking about, if they did something like that, they would not need a trailer to convince anybody to see their next movie. They literally could have just been like, okay, here's Infinity War Part 2, and the lines would have been out the door because you immediately have no satisfaction. You don't know what the fuck happened. Like, people have to see it now. Even if you hated the movie, you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to have like a tumor in my head unless I go and see this movie.
Yeah, that's true too. And then, social media made it so that you as an actor promoting a movie can't really escape being around the conversation surrounding your movie. So, you're marketing the movie 24/7 anyway. So, like, let's say I'm Chris Evans, I'm doing a small time movie, and I do like a world tour for it. I'm gonna get questions about Infinity War, and I'll promote it anyway. So it's kind of an inescapable type of thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy stuff to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to speculate on, of course. We're armchair film critics, right? So, like,
Right.
But it would be pretty cool to see something like that, where literally the Russo brothers just take the biggest risk ever and have it pay off. That would have been pretty sweet.
And yeah, wow, it's one of those things where you do that, you can't really show your face for a while. Like,
Oh yeah,
let people calm down, because they were doing like the press tour right away as the movie came out. But like after that happens, you don't want to come out of your hole, whatever that is.
oh yeah. And, I mean, they did it with Chris Pratt too. Like Chris Pratt, they were like boycott Chris Pratt. He's the worst. He ruined everything. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
allowed to show his face. He's allowed to show his face.
Real life and your work are bleeding together quite a lot these days.
Yeah.
A lot of people start identifying the character with the person, and that could be good or bad depending on how beloved your character is or not. But that's a different conversation.
Exactly.
Actually, that could be a topic for another podcast. We'll see.
That could. All right. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I feel like, well, we never got to actual reviews of Comic-Con trailers, but I did enjoy the Shazam trailer. I think, the Shazam movie is an origin story, so the trailer had to be the trailer of an origin story.
Yeah.
But then you had a brief glimpse of the antagonist, Mark Strong, whoever his character is.
He's gonna
He
be
had a
so
brief-
forgettable though. Like he's gonna be so forgettable. That's one thing I could tell from
I
the
think
trailer.
that's the risk. I think that's the risk the trailer took. Is like, we're not gonna tell you much about him. You make up your mind about him, but then perhaps I just don't want the next trailer to make the mistake of telling us that this guy is interesting.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, there was no content whatsoever about the antagonist, and apparently the antagonist was pretty well received by critics and audiences. You can take that risk. You don't have to focus on your villain, and Shazam didn't do that for the first trailer. I hope they continue to do that for the next. I think there should be one more trailer before the movie comes out, maybe two.
For sure.
Do that, and then just trust that you're making a movie. Like, you've done your job. You've established the aesthetics of your movie. You've established the tone. It's different tone than like Batman vs Superman or Justice League. That should be sufficient. Just roll with it.
Yeah.
Conversely,
yeah.
I did not really like the Aquaman trailer. It was one of those things that confused the hell out of me. I'm like, they look like they're going to the desert. What the hell are they doing in the damn desert? That's Aquaman, man. So I don't know.
Like so the whole antagonistic thing. So it's the brother trying to take over the throne, but then Man Ray is in it.
Not Man Ray.
Whatever his name is. Man Ray's the
Black Manta.
the
Black Manta.
Black Manta. Yeah. Man Ray's the SpongeBob villain. But yeah. So I feel like that movie's also gonna struggle with juggling the villains and making them all relevant, because I mean, something like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, for example, had like 55 and a half villains, and they struggled to make all of them relevant and have some meat, where I think that a movie coming out from DC needs to focus on having one antagonist that's really meaty, because I feel like that's their best ploy nowadays to get people in the seats, like compelling villains, which, I mean, I'm really still waiting for a good interpretation of the Joker for them, but regardless, I think that movie is going to suffer from I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. They did such a weird tone reversal with Aquaman in Justice League, and I actually liked it. I think Jason Momoa is a good actor, and I think that his interpretation of the character was okay. But I feel like they're going to try and balance those two extremes of him being a CrossFit bro that's in the ocean versus him being a superhero. And I get it. That's going to lead to some fish out of water humor and all that kind of stuff. But I really don't hold a lot of faith for that movie, even though I really like James Wan as director. He made some great movies in the past, but I don't know. I feel like they've kind of bitten off more than they can chew with balancing the interpretation from Zack Snyder for Aquaman versus what James Wan wants to do. At least that's my kind of guess.
I agree, because, again, it's the type of thing that when it was announced that it was coming out, I had good faith. I said, oh, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be the movie that starts putting DC back on the right track. But then it took so long for them to actually release a trailer, because you release a trailer maybe 4 months before the movie comes out. That's pretty late.
Oh yeah.
But then the trailer didn't really blow me away, so I do have concerns about the movie now that I didn't have them like few months ago. So I feel like they need to really nail whatever next trailer they're gonna come out with.
Oh yeah.
Presumably like in a month or so, like a month from now, mid September, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And other trailers, I mean, we talked about Shazam and Aquaman. The Godzilla monster movie, it looks pretty cool. I mean, the 2014 Godzilla is not perfect by any means. It struck an interesting aesthetic, which sets the monsters actually in real life, which is kind of cool. And having Mothra and the three-headed dragon and all those kind of things is going to be kind of cool for people that are,
King Ghidorah, yeah,
King Ghidorah, yeah. Like it'll be cool to see those things in beautiful CGI and have them kind of on their full glory. And I do like Millie Bobby Brown as an actress. I think she'll bring a lot of good sentiment to that role. And have some interesting dichotomies between like humanity and monster and humanity and nature and stuff, because she's like the perfect innocent kid in that kind of archetype. I don't think it's gonna be amazing, but I think that it's gonna be satisfying at least.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What else came out?
It did what it needed to do, I think.
Exactly. It piqued my
perhaps
interest.
Focused a little bit too much on human characters, but I think it did what it needed to do.
Well, I mean, Godzilla in 2014, it had, what was it? It was like 13 minutes of Godzilla. and the
Yeah,
movie
and
is
that
called
was a
Godzilla.
mistake. I hope they would not repeat it again, but that was a mistake.
Yeah,
So,
but now I mean they put themselves into a corner because the movie is called Godzilla King of Monsters, and they have multiple monsters in the movie, so they also have to give all of them their just screen time. So I feel like there's going to be a little more action, a little more meat to bite into with kind of the nostalgia aspects of Godzilla, and also just putting them on the screen because you can't have 12 minutes of 4 or 5 monsters on the screen to have it be a satisfying movie.
yeah, well, even if you don't have the monsters show up as much, don't do what Godzilla 2014 did and kill off your best actor after like 10 minutes. Keep Vera Farmiga, I guess, is the one you have here. Just keep her around for the whole movie. But yeah, you know,
For sure.
overall, I think
I'll be okay.
yeah, I think it'll be fine. I think the trailers for Comic Con were pretty decent overall. Some of the TV trailers I actually really liked. Like, I mean, I watched Arrow on CW. I thought Arrow had a very good trailer, so that's gonna be very exciting to a season.
Is there anything else
shall see.
that came out? Or I know there's like a DC app that's coming out where it's like all the movies and TV shows and stuff, but there was like a promo for that, but that's all I know about that.
Yeah, there's that. There's Young Justice on the TV side. DC is good doing some. There's some footage we didn't see. There's a Wonder Woman footage out there. People really liked it. We didn't see it, so. Or Venom. I guess Venom is the biggest trailer that came out from Comic Con. It came out. We already saw it.
Yeah,
I thought that was
the
very
new
good.
trailer a couple days ago came out. Yeah, that was.
I think that's a good. That's gonna be a good movie.
They did give some cringy lines in that movie, so I feel like they're. I don't know. I really hope the script is good. Maybe they're just kind of relying upon like the slapstick humor just to entice audiences and have it not be such a dark movie. But some of the dialogue, man, I was like.
So the funny thing about that dialogue is it's actually from the comics itself. It's not invented by this movie. So.
The turd thing
Well-
is from the movie, from the comics.
Well, I don't know about that line, but the line "so many snacks, so little time" is definitely out of the comics. It's definitely out of the comics. There's like a panel you can find that has Venom saying that line.
Yeah. Okay. And like that sounds like a carnivore picking off his prey. That sounds fine. When you have a 45-second dialogue about biting someone's arms and legs off and then calling him a turd in the wind, that sounds like what's that really shitty movie with like the dick jokes in it? Grown Ups. That sounds like a joke from Grown Ups that Adam Sandler and David Spade would say. And I was like, oh God. Like, but I will say though,
That was not a very sexy way to end the trailer. I feel like they could have done better. But you know,
the "We Are Venom" thing. End it there. Like half the face. "We are Venom" takes a bite out of him. Done. Why didn't you
Yes,
that stupid?
agreed.
Why didn't that stupid trailer? Like the
Agreed,
stupid trailer
agreed.
ending. It's just ridiculous. We should really be producers, man. Let's call Sony.
let our audience give us the money to do it. We'll produce something really good for you guys.
All right. And with that, thank you for listening to us. Please share with your friends. Please post this video or any of my video essays or my chats or my podcast with Abdallah. Please post them far and wide. We're looking to grow this channel because we really like doing this for you guys. We've gotten some great feedback so far, so let's keep it up. Post any kind of comments or suggestions, critiques, any topics you want us to cover in the future. And we're looking forward to making some more for you guys. We're gonna have we're gonna try and do a weekly or at least a bi-weekly podcast, and we're gonna have it on Sundays. So we're gonna keep a suggested time for the live stream. So we'll have a little more order for those kind of scheduled podcasts. And we're looking forward to making them. We're pretty excited.
Absolutely.
All right.
Till the next time.
All right. And with that, peace out, my friends. Peace.